March of 1876, blizzard hit Cold Springs so hard the depot master quit his post. I was loading feed sacks when I heard it, crying, faint as a kicked dog coming from the freight platform. Wind howled through the rafters, carrying coal smoke and the sharp smell of frozen iron. I followed the sound, found her wedged between mail crates, girl, maybe 6 years old, lips the color of old bruises, copper hair matted with ice. She wore a wool coat 3 sizes too big, and pinned to the collar was a scrap of paper. 4 words in charcoal: unwanted, no kin, no home. The depot agent crossed his arms. County orphanage business, Thornton. Can't leave her cluttering my platform. A crowd had gathered, townspeople waiting for the westbound. Mrs. Pemberton whispered loud enough for half of them to hear, "That's the hermit rancher, lost his wife 6 years back." The girl's hand was curled around something. I knelt in the snow, my leather gloves cracking in the cold, and worked her fingers open. A locket on a thin chain. I rubbed frost from the engraving. Clara and Margaret, sisters forever, 1854. My breath stopped. Margaret, my dead wife's name. The crowd watched, waiting to see if the broken widower would walk away. I lifted the child. She weighed nothing. My tears froze on my cheeks before they could fall. "I'll take her home," I said. "Just till spring thaw." Didn't know spring would bring a war. The ranch sat 15 miles from town, accessible only by a road that turned to frozen ruts come winter. By the time I got the girl home, full dark had fallen. I carried her inside, set her by the stove, and built up the fire until the iron belly ticked with heat. She didn't speak, didn't cry, just watched me with eyes the color of summer sky. Margaret's eyes, I realized with a jolt that nearly buckled my knees. I heated water in this big kettle, testing it with my elbow, the way I'd seen Margaret do years back when we had ranch hands to tend. The girl's feet were the worst. 3 toes on the left foot had gone white as candle wax. I bathed them gentle, working warmth back into frozen flesh. She flinched, but made no sound. "What's your name?" I asked. She looked at the flour sack on the counter, reached out one small finger, and traced letters in the spilled dust. Lily. "Lily," I said. "That's a good name." She wrote again, Thankyu. Something cracked open in my chest. I fetched Margaret's old quilt from the trunk, the one with the wildflower pattern stitched in blue thread. When I draped it over Lily's shoulders, her fingers traced the stitching, slow and deliberate, like she was reading words in a language I couldn't see. "You recognize that pattern?" She looked up at me, nodded once, but before I could ask more, bootfalls sounded on the porch. Doc Emma Hartwell arrived at first light, her medical bag clanking with glass bottles. She was a practical woman in her 40s, gray threading through black hair, hands that moved with the certainty of 20 years' practice. She examined Lily's feet by lamplight, pressing each toe, watching for response. The smell of carbolic soap filled the cabin, sharp, medicinal, cutting through the wood smoke. 3 toes may be lost," Emma said quietly. "The middle one's on the left foot. Won't know for certain till the tissue declares itself. 3, maybe 4 days. She'll need round-the-clock care. Warm compresses every 2 hours. Willow bark tea for the pain. And watching, Caleb. Constant watching, in case fever sets in." I nodded, understanding what she was asking. Commitment. Not just for a night, but for weeks, maybe months. "I can do it," I said. Emma's eyes held mine. "You sure? You've been alone a long while. Taking in a child, especially one who can't even tell you her story, that's not a small thing." "I'm sure." Emma closed her bag. The brass latches clicked in the quiet cabin. "There's something else. That locket she was holding, I read the inscription. Clara and Margaret. Your Margaret?" "Never mentioned a sister by that name," I said. "She had family back in Omaha, but we weren't close with them. Letters stopped coming after the 2nd year. Might be worth looking into." Emma pulled on her coat. "Because if that child's got Thornwood blood, Caleb, you've got legal standing, and from what I hear, you're going to need it." "What do you mean?" "Silas Merrick's been surveying homesteads, talking about territorial code, family continuity laws. Widowers without heirs are losing their land left and right." She paused at the door, cold air rushing in. "Just saying, might be more than kindness brought that girl to your door." After she left, I sat by the stove and listened to Lily breathe. Small, even breaths, the sound of a living thing in a house that had been silent too long. I opened Margaret's trunk, hadn't touched it in 3 years, and found her diary at the bottom, wrapped in oilcloth. The leather was soft with age, the pages yellowed. I turned them carefully, looking for Clara's name. Found it halfway through, April 12th, 1870. Clara wrote from Omaha. Her baby girl was born 3 weeks ago. Difficult birth, clubfoot, poor thing. But the surgeons say she'll walk fine with time. She named her Lily. I told Caleb we should bring them here once Clara is strong enough. This territory is no place to raise a child alone. I looked at the girl, sleeping by the stove. Clubfoot. I lifted the quilt edge, examined her left foot where Emma had wrapped it in clean bandages. There. A slight inward turn at the ankle. Corrected by surgery, but still visible if you knew to look. Margaret's niece. My niece, by marriage. Lily stirred, opened her eyes, touched the quilt again, that same slow tracing of the stitching pattern. Your mama made this, I said softly. And my wife, your Aunt Margaret, she made one just like it. That's how sisters learn. Same hands, same stitches. Lily's eyes filled with tears, but still, she didn't speak. Outside, the wind picked up, and in the distance, faint but unmistakable, I heard the sound of a horse approaching through the snow. Sunday morning, first week of April, I dressed Lily in one of Margaret's old dresses. It was the only child-sized clothing I had. Margaret had saved it from her own girlhood, packed away in the trunk with lavender sachets. The fabric was faded calico, blue flowers on cream. Lily stood still while I fumbled with the buttons. My hands were better suited to mending fence than dressing children. But when I finished, she looked in the mirror shard above the wash basin, and something like a smile touched her face. You look fine, I said. The church sat at the edge of town, whitewashed pine with a bell tower that could be heard for miles. Father Miguel Santos rang it at 8 sharp. The sound carried across the greening prairie, calling the faithful and the curious alike. We arrived as families were tying their horses. Conversation stopped mid-sentence. Heads turned. Mrs. Pemberton stood on the church steps with 3 other mercantile wives, their Sunday hats bobbing as they leaned together. Is that Margaret's old dress? One of them said. Not quite quiet enough. Heard he found the girl at the depot, another whispered, claiming she's kin. Mighty convenient, Mrs. Pemberton said, her voice carrying. Man facing a land review suddenly produces an orphan to prove family continuity. I felt Lily's hand tighten in mine. I wanted to turn around, ride back to the ranch, lock the door against their judgment. But Margaret had raised me better than that. We walked past them into the church. Father Miguel's sermon was about charity and the parable of the Good Samaritan. I barely heard it. Could feel eyes on the back of my neck. After the benediction, folks filed out quick, not meeting my gaze. Only Abel Croft stopped to speak, 60-some years old, blacksmith, with hands scarred from a lifetime at the forge. Good to see you in church again, Caleb, he said, then quieter. Don't let the gossips trouble you. Most of them wouldn't know Christian charity if it bit them on Sunday. Outside, Mrs. Pemberton waited. She stepped directly into my path, arms folded beneath her considerable bosom. Mr. Thornwood, a word. Ma'am, I've heard you're claiming this child is family, that she's your late wife's kin. Her eyes were sharp as broken glass. Seems awfully convenient timing, what with the territorial review coming. Some folks are saying you might be using this poor orphan to secure your land claim. The anger came hot and sudden, and but I held it, counted to 5. Said yet, what folks say and what's true aren't always the same thing. Can you prove it? That she's blood relation? Working on it. Working on it. Mrs. Pemberton smiled, thin and cold. Well, I'm sure the land office will be interested to hear that. She walked away, her Sunday skirts rustling like dry corn stalks. Lily pulled on my hand. When I looked down, she'd gone pale, her eyes wide with something like fear. I knelt beside her. Don't you worry, I said. People talk, that's what they do, but talk is just noise. We know the truth. She touched the locket at her neck, then pointed at my chest. You want to know the truth? I asked. About your mama and my wife? She nodded. Come on, let's go home. I'll show you. We were halfway back to the ranch when the rider caught up. Black gelding, expensive saddle, man dressed in a wool suit despite the spring mud. He reined up alongside my wagon. Caleb Thornwood? That's right. Silas Merrick, county land agent. He touched the brim of his hat, a gesture empty of warmth. His face was narrow, sharp-featured, with the kind of smile that never reached his eyes. A gold pocket watch chain gleamed at his vest. Might I have a word? You're having it. I'd prefer to discuss official business in private. His gaze slid to Lily, without little ears present. She can't speak, I said, so your privacy's assured. Merrick's smile tightened. Very well. I've come to inform you of a territorial review. Under Code Section 412, any homestead held by a single man without documented heirs or family continuity is subject to reassessment. I've been tasked with conducting these reviews. My land's been filed proper since '71. Deeds registered, taxes paid. Oh, I'm sure everything was in order when you filed. Merrick leaned forward in his saddle. But the code is clear. A homestead must demonstrate ongoing family occupation. You've been alone for, 6 years now, since your wife's unfortunate passing? I've worked that land every day. Worked it? Yes. But family continuity requires blood relations or legal dependence, unless you've recently acquired either. His eyes flicked to Lily again. I understand you've taken in a child. How providential. She's my late wife's niece. Can you prove that? The question hung in the air between us. Lily's hand found mine again, cold despite her gloves. Working on it, I said. I see. Merrick straightened in his saddle. Then let me make this official. You have 120 days from today, that's August 1st, to provide documented proof of family continuity. Birth records, marriage certificates, legal adoption papers. Failing that, your homestead will be subject to forfeiture and public auction. He pulled an envelope from his coat, handed it down. That's your notice, signed by the territorial governor himself. I took the envelope. The paper was heavy, official, the seal unbroken. 120 days, Mr. Thornwood. Clock's ticking. He wheeled his horse and rode toward town, his gelding's hooves throwing up mud. I looked at the envelope in my hand, then at Lily beside me. Her eyes were huge, frightened. She might not understand all the words, but she understood enough. We were in trouble. That night, after I'd tucked her into bed, I stood at the window and watched Merrick's lamp burning in the distance. He'd made camp on the eastern edge of my land, just inside what he probably considered disputed territory, and by lamplight, I could see him planting boundary stakes. Next morning, I rode into town with Lily. Abel Croft's forge sat at the far end of Main Street, a squat building with a chimney that leaked smoke even on windless days. The sound of hammer on anvil rang out before we'd even dismounted, steady, rhythmic, the heartbeat of metal being shaped. Abel looked up when we entered. His face was weathered leather, beard gone mostly white, but his arms were still thick with muscle. The forge glowed orange in the dim interior, throwing heat that made sweat bead on my neck despite the April chill outside. Caleb. He set down his hammer. And who's this? Lily, my wife's niece, turns out. I pulled the notice from my coat pocket. Got a problem, Abel. Wondering if you might help. He read it slow, his lips moving slightly. When he finished, he folded it careful and handed it back. Merrick, he said. Been waiting for him to come after you. You know him? Know of him. He's processed 12 claims in the past year. Every single one ended up auctioned to the railroad within a month. Man's got connections in Cheyenne, and he's not particular about how he gets his results. Abel looked at Lily. But if she's blood kin, you've got standing. You just need proof. That's the trouble. Margaret and her sister weren't close. Letters stopped years back. What about birth records? Marriage certificates? Margaret's are in the county archive. But Clara's, I shook my head. She was living in Omaha last I heard. Railroad camp, maybe. Could be anywhere by now. Abel was quiet for a moment, watching the forge coals pulse with heat. Then he said, I might know someone who can help. Doc Emma's got connections at the territorial office. If anyone can track down records, it's her. Already thought of that, but it'll take time. Money too, probably. How much time you got? 120 days. Abel nodded slowly. Then we better get started. He turned to Lily, crouched down to her level. You ever seen a blacksmith work, little one? She shook her head. Come here, I'll show you something. He led her to a workbench where a horseshoe sat cooling. Picked it up with tongs, dipped it in the slack tub. Steam hissed, the smell of hot metal and water filling the air. Lily watched, fascinated. Abel set the shoe on the anvil, picked up his hammer. See, when you shape iron, you've got to be patient. Can't force it. Got to work with the heat, the grain of the metal. You rush it, it breaks. He raised the hammer, brought it down. The clang echoed off the stone walls. Lily's scream cut through the air like a knife. She stumbled backward, hands over her ears, eyes wild with terror. I caught her before she fell. She was shaking, making small wounded sounds in her throat. What happened? Abel set down the hammer, alarmed. I held Lily close. Her heart hammered against my chest like a bird trying to escape a cage. Don't know? The sound, maybe? I'm sorry, little one. I'm sorry. Abel's voice was gentle. Didn't mean to frighten you. But Lily wouldn't look at him, wouldn't look at anything. She buried her face against my coat and shook. I carried her outside into the spring air, sat on the bench by Abel's woodpile, and held her until the shaking stopped. When she finally pulled back, her face was streaked with tears. What scared you? I asked. The hammer? She nodded. You heard that sound before? Somewhere bad? Another nod. Her hands moved, trying to shape words she couldn't speak. She pointed at her ears, then made a motion like something falling, then covered her face. Something fell? Something loud? She grabbed a stick from the woodpile, drew in the dirt. A crude shape, rectangular, with teeth or spikes along one edge. What is that? She drew more. Flames, a building, stick figures. A fire? My throat went dry. You saw a fire? People burning? Lily's face crumpled. She nodded, fresh tears spilling. I pulled her close again. It's all right. You're safe now. Whatever you saw, it can't hurt you anymore. But even as I said it, I knew it wasn't true. Whatever had happened to her, whatever had killed her mother and left her mute and terrified of hammer sounds, that was still alive inside her. And until we knew what it was, we couldn't begin to heal it. That night, Abel came to the ranch. He knocked soft, waited for me to light the lamp before entering. Lily was asleep in the small room I'd set up for her. Been thinking, Abel said, settling into the chair by the stove. About that drawing she made, the shape with teeth. What about it? Looked like a railroad spike to me, the kind they drive to hold the rails. Got a notched head, looks like teeth if you don't know what you were seeing. I thought about that. She'd draw fire too, building burning. Railroad camps catch fire sometimes, usually when there's payroll disputes or someone needs records destroyed. Abel's voice was quiet, careful. Clara Graves, your wife's sister, she was living at a railroad camp, you said. Last Margaret heard. Might want to ask Father Miguel about that. He keeps records of deaths in the territory, burial registry, baptisms, if something happened to Clara, if she died in a fire. He'd have record of it, I finished. Abel nodded. And Doc Emma leaves for the territorial capital tomorrow. Asked me to tell you, she's going to search the archives herself. Birth records, death certificates, whatever she can find on Clara Graves and her daughter. Why's she doing this? Abel's expression softened. Because Emma delivered your stillborn son 6 years ago. Watched Margaret die in her arms. She's carried that failure ever since. This is her chance to save a life that matters to you. Don't deny her that. After he left, I checked on Lily. She was sleeping restless, murmuring words I couldn't hear. I sat beside her bed until the murmurs stopped and her breathing evened. Outside, spring peepers sang in the marsh, the sound of ice breaking up, water flowing free again. But in the distance, I could still see Merrick's campfire burning. Late April, town meeting. Required attendance for all homesteaders in the district, Merrick had said. Official business regarding territorial code compliance. The courthouse was packed. 40, maybe 50 people crowded into a room built for half that. The air smelled of damp wool and tobacco smoke. Spring mud caked every boot, tracked across the plank floor in dark streaks. Merrick stood at the front beside a table covered with documents. His wool suit was pressed sharp despite the season. That gold watch chain gleamed in the lamplight. Sheriff Tom Bridger leaned against the back wall, arms folded, his star catching the light. He was a quiet man, mid-40s, with a reputation for avoiding trouble rather than confronting it. I took a seat near the middle, Lily beside me. Folks shifted, making space but not meeting my eyes. Only Abel nodded from across the room. Merrick cleared his throat. Thank you all for coming. I'll keep this brief. As you know, the territory has enacted Section 412 to ensure proper land use and prevent speculation. Homesteads must demonstrate family continuity, blood relations or legal dependents actively working the land. He unrolled a large document, spread it across the table. A survey map, I realized. Property lines marked in ink. I've completed preliminary reviews of this district. Several claims are under question. His finger traced the map. The Henderson place, widower, no children. The Morrison Ranch, spinster, no living relations. The Thornwood Homestead. He looked directly at me. Widower, recently claimed dependent of uncertain lineage. Mrs. Pemberton shifted in her seat. What does that mean, uncertain lineage? It means Mr. Thornwood has made assertions about the child's parentage, but has yet to provide documentation. Merrick smiled. Of course, I'm sure such documentation exists. It's merely a matter of producing it. I've got papers being gathered, I said. Do you? From where, exactly? Territorial Archives. County records in Omaha. Ah. Merrick pulled another document from his stack. That's interesting because I've already conducted a search of the Omaha County records. Found nothing under the name Graves. No birth certificate for a Lily Graves, no marriage license for a Clara Graves. He held up the paper. This is a signed affidavit from the Omaha County clerk stating no such records exist. The room went quiet. I felt eyes turning toward me. That can't be right, I said. Can't it? Merrick's voice was soft, almost sympathetic. Mr. Thornwood, I understand your situation. A man alone, facing land review. Naturally, you'd want to find a way to maintain your homestead. And then, conveniently, a child appears. An orphan no one can identify, with no papers, no past. Easy enough to claim kinship when there's no one left to dispute it. That's not what happened. Then prove it. He set the affidavit on the table. You have 93 days remaining, Mr. Thornwood. I suggest you use them wisely. The meeting dissolved into murmurs. Folks filed out quick, avoiding my gaze. I stayed seated, staring at that affidavit, trying to make sense of it. Abel appeared at my elbow. That's forged. How do you know? Because the town clerk's handwriting is on half the documents in this courthouse. I've seen it 100 times. That signature? He nodded toward the affidavit. That's not his hand. Sheriff Bridger approached. He glanced at Merrick, who was talking with the town council, then lowered his voice. Caleb, a word outside. We stepped into the evening air. The sky was bruising purple, spring rain threatening. Lily stayed close, her hand in mine. I can't do anything, Bridger said without preamble. The territorial governor signed off on Merrick's appointment. His documents carry official weight. Even if that affidavit's forged, and I'm not saying it is, I've got no jurisdiction to investigate. So what am I supposed to do? Find your proof. Fast. Bridger's eyes were tired, sad. Look, Caleb, between you and me, Merrick's been at this for over a year. Every homestead he's reviewed has ended up in railroad hands, and somehow he always finds a way to make the paperwork work in his favor. He's stealing land. Maybe, probably, but he's doing it legal enough that I can't touch him. Bridger settled his hat. My hands are tied. State says his paperwork's in order. After he left, Abel put a hand on my shoulder. Emma should be back in a week. If there's records to find, she'll find them. But I could hear the doubt in his voice. The drought started in May. Not unusual for the season, but this one came hard and early. The water hole on my land, the one that had run steady for 20 years, dried to cracked mud by mid-month, meant hauling water from the creek 10 miles south, twice a day, every day, while the sun beat down and the cattle bawled their thirst. By the end of May, I'd lost 2 head to heat, found them dead in the pasture, tongues swollen black. Then Merrick's man came calling. His name was Porter, rail-thin, dressed in range clothes, riding a mare too fine for a working cowhand. He found me at the creek loading barrels. Mr. Thornwood, got a message from Mr. Merrick. I'm listening. He's prepared to make an offer. $500, cash. You sign over the deed, vacate by June 1st, clean and simple. I kept loading water. Not interested. That's more than fair market value for disputed land. Land's not disputed, it's mine. Porter watched me work. You're down to 87 days, Thornwood, and I hear your cattle are dropping. How many you figure you'll have left by August? How you going to afford a lawyer on a dead herd? I set down the bucket, turned to face him. You tell Merrick I'm not selling, not for 500, not for fun, not for 5,000. This land stays in my family. Family, Porter smiled. That mute girl, the one you can't prove is kin? Get off my property. You're making a mistake. Mr. Merrick's being generous. Next time, the offer might not be so kind. He rode away, his mare's hooves throwing up dust. That evening, I did something I hadn't done in years. I went to the small plot behind the house where Margaret and our son were buried. 2 wooden crosses, weathered gray by wind and sun. I'd planted wildflowers around them. Margaret had always loved wildflowers, but the drought had killed even those. I knelt in the dead grass. I'm trying, Margaret, but I don't know if trying's going to be enough. The wind picked up, carrying dust. In the distance, thunder rumbled, but no rain came. When I returned to the house, I found Lily at the kitchen table. She'd laid out every coin from my savings jar, mostly nickels and dimes, a few silver dollars. She'd arranged them in neat stacks, counting. "What are you doing?" She pointed at the coins, then at me, then made a gesture like writing. "You want to know how much we have? For the lawyer?" She nodded. I sat beside her, counted out loud. $43? Not near enough. Lily's face fell. She touched the largest stack, the silver dollars, then looked at me with those blue eyes full of questions she couldn't ask. "My prize bull," I said quietly. "Thunder. He's worth about $300, maybe more. I could sell him, use the money for legal fees, to send people to Omaha, to hire someone to track down your mama's records." She pointed at me, then at the door, then shook her head hard. "You don't want me to sell him?" She shook her head again, drew a quick picture. A cow, a calf, a broken fence. "You think we need him here? For the herd?" "Yes." "Maybe so, but what good's a herd if we don't have land to graze it on?" She had no answer for that. Neither did I. The next morning, a man named Collins rode up, said he was a cattle buyer out of Billings, interested in quality breeding stock. "Heard you got a bull worth seeing," he said. I showed him Thunder, 1,700 pounds of muscle and horn, prime breeding age. Collins walked around him, checked his teeth, his feet, his temperament. "I'll give you 150. "He's worth 300. "Maybe to someone else, but I'm the one here with cash." Collins pulled out a leather wallet, counted bills. 150. Take it or leave it." I looked at that money, looked at Thunder, looked back at the house where Lily was watching from the window. "I'll take it." Collins handed over the bills. "Pleasure doing business. I'll send my boys to pick him up tomorrow." After he rode away, I stood in the corral with those bills in my hand. $150. Half what Thunder was worth, not enough for a good lawyer, maybe enough to send Abel to Omaha, to pay for archive searches, to bribe a clerk if needed. That night, Merrick came himself. I saw his lamp approaching across the dark prairie. He rode right up to the porch, bold as you please. "Heard you sold your bull," he called. "Getting ready to leave?" "Getting ready to fight." He dismounted, tied his horse. The smell of expensive tobacco drifted from his coat. "Mr. Thornwood, Caleb, may I speak plainly? You're on my land. Speak however you want." "You can't win this. I've got the territorial governor's backing. I've got affidavits, surveys, legal precedents. You've got a mute child and a story no one can verify." He pulled an envelope from his coat. "But I'm a reasonable man. $500. That's my final offer. Sign now, vacate within the month, and this all goes away clean." I looked at that envelope, at the money that would let me start over somewhere else. Maybe buy a small place away from railroads and land agents and territorial codes. Then I looked through the window at Lily, sitting by the lamp, working on her letters. I took the envelope. Merrick smiled. I walked to the stove, opened the iron door, threw the envelope into the fire. "That's my answer," I said. Merrick's smile vanished. He stood very still, watching the flames consume his offer. When he spoke again, his voice was cold. "You'll regret this. I promise you that." He mounted his horse and rode into the darkness. Lily appeared in the doorway. She'd seen everything. I waited for fear, for tears. Instead, she came to me and took my hand, squeezed it once. Then she led me to the table where she'd been working. She'd written something in careful letters. "Family." "That's right," I said, my throat tight. "Family." Outside, the wind picked up. Thunder rumbled again. And this time, finally, the rain began to fall. The rain lasted 3 days. When it stopped, the world smelled different. Wet earth instead of dust, green shoots pushing through mud. Spring had finally arrived, 2 months late and twice as welcome. Abel came to the ranch on the 4th day. He rode slow, careful through the mud-slick road. Behind him, wrapped in oilcloth and strapped to his saddle, was a bundle I couldn't identify. "Got something to show you," he said. We went to the barn. Lily followed, curious. Abel unwrapped the bundle with careful hands. Inside was a piece of metal, roughly circular, about the size of a silver dollar. It had been worked and polished until it caught the light like a mirror. "What is it?" I asked. "Medallion, still rough, but getting there." He turned it over. One side bore the MT star, my ranch brand, the same mark I'd been using for 20 years. The other side showed a simple cross. "Been working on it at night, after the forge work's done." "Why?" Abel looked at Lily. "Because that child's got wounds we can't see. And sometimes, when words won't heal, symbols do. My grandmother was Lakota. She taught me that metal holds memory. You forge it with intention, bless it proper, it becomes protection. Abel, I appreciate it, but I'm not finished. He set the medallion on the workbench. Been thinking about what she drew, that railroad spike, the fire. So I rode out to the old railroad camp, the one they abandoned 2 years back. Found the site where the workers' quarters used to be. And found this. He pulled something else from his coat. A railroad spike, its head notched like teeth. The metal was scorched black. Same design she drew, this was in the fire remains? I took it, felt the weight. You think Clara died in that fire? I know she did. Father Miguel confirmed it. He's got her burial record. Clara Graves, died March 1874, fire at the railroad camp, listed as accidental. Abel's voice dropped. But Miguel remembers it, says the camp boss, man named Fletcher, claimed it was a cooking fire that got out of hand. But the workers said different, said there was an argument about pay, threats made, and that night the quarters burned. Who was this Fletcher? Dead now, died in a fall off a train platform 6 months later. Abel paused. But his assistant, man who did his paperwork, handled the accounts, name was Silas Merrick. The air in the barn went still. You're saying Merrick was there when Clara died? I'm saying he was there, and Clara Graves was a witness to whatever Fletcher was doing with the payroll accounts. And I'm saying fires don't usually burn hot enough to destroy metal spikes unless someone's feeding them extra fuel. I looked at Lily. She was staring at the scorched spike, her face pale. Does she remember him? I asked quietly. Merrick? Only one way to know. Abel crouched down to Lily's level. Little one, I need to ask you something. The night of the fire, the night your mama died, was there a man there? Someone who made you afraid? Lily nodded slowly. If you heard his voice again, would you recognize it? Another nod. Abel and I exchanged looks. We need to get her near Merrick, I said. See if she reacts. Carefully, Abel warned. Man like that, if he knows she can identify him, she's in danger. What about this medallion? You said it helps with wounds. Helps her remember too. Metal holds memory, the sound of it being forged, the heat, the hammer strikes. Sometimes that's enough to unlock what's been buried. He picked up the medallion again. Give me another week. I'll have it finished by the summer solstice. That's the longest day. Time of light, revelation. Seems fitting. After Abel left, I found Lily in the garden plot beside the house. She was on her knees in the mud, planting seeds from a packet I'd bought in town. Margaret used to do the same thing every spring. Vegetables for the table, flowers for the soul. What are you planting? I asked. She showed me the packet. Lavender. That was Margaret's favorite, I said, my throat tight. How'd you know? She touched the locket at her neck, then pointed at me, then made a gesture like sleeping. Your mama told you? About Margaret liking lavender? Yes. What else did she tell you about your aunt? Lily stood, brushed mud from her dress. She took my hand and led me into the house, to the trunk where Margaret's things were kept. She pointed at the quilt. The quilt, yes. Your mama made one like it. Lily shook her head, drew a number in the dust on the trunk lid. 2. 2 quilts? Yes. She pointed at the quilt, then at herself. Your mama made 2 quilts. One for herself, one for you? Lily nodded. Then she traced the stitching pattern with one finger, the same slow, deliberate movement I'd seen that first night. She was reading it, I realized. The pattern meant something. She pointed at a specific flower in the corner. Blue petals, yellow center. Then she ran to her small room, came back with something clutched in her hand. A scrap of fabric, blue petals, yellow center, same pattern. You had the other quilt? The one your mama made? Lily's eyes filled with tears. She shook her head, made a gesture like flames. It burned. In the fire. She nodded, pressed the scrap to her chest. But you saved this piece. Yes, I knelt beside her. Lily, that quilt, it's proof. Proof that Clara and Margaret were sisters, that they learned the same stitching from their mother. If we can show that pattern, if Father Miguel has records of them learning together. She grabbed my arm, pointed at the window. Outside, riders approached. 3 of them, moving slow and deliberate through the mud. I recognized the lead horse, Merrick's black gelding. Go to your room, I said quietly. Lock the door. Don't come out until I tell you. Lily ran. I heard the door close, the bolt slide home. I stepped onto the porch, rifle in hand, but not raised. The rider stopped at the fence line. Merrick stayed mounted. The two men with him had the look of hired guns, hard faces, weapons worn easy on their hips. "Mr. Thornwood," Merrick called. "Just wanted to inform you that your cattle appear to have wandered onto disputed land. I've taken the liberty of impounding them until ownership can be established. Those cattle are on my property." "Your property?" He smiled. "We'll see what the survey says. In the meantime, I'd hate for any more of them to go missing. Rustlers are terrible this time of year." One of the hired men laughed. I raised the rifle, not quite pointing at them, but close. "You touch my herd," I said quietly, "and it won't be the law you answer to." Merrick's smile never wavered. "Is that a threat, Mr. Thornwood? Because threatening a territorial official is a serious crime." "It's a promise." We stared at each other across the mud and distance. Finally, Merrick touched his hat brim. 76 days, Mr. Thornwood. Time's running out." They rode away, but I could see them stopping at the ridge, making camp, setting up watch, hemming us in. Early June, I woke to find 12 head of cattle missing. Their tracks led east toward the railroad right-of-way. By the time I'd saddled up and followed, the trail went cold in the creek bed. I rode straight to town, found Merrick at the land office reviewing plats with the town clerk. "My cattle," I said without preamble. "Where are they?" "I'm sure I don't know what you mean." Merrick didn't look up from his papers. 12 head, gone this morning. Tracks lead toward the railroad. Rustlers are a problem in this territory. You should speak with the sheriff." "I'm speaking with you." Now he looked up. The office went quiet. The clerk, two other homesteaders waiting their turn, all watching. "Are you accusing me of cattle theft, Mr. Thornwood?" "I'm saying my herd's dropping, my water's gone, and every time I turn around, you're there with another problem. Mighty convenient for a man who wants my land." Merrick stood slowly. "Careful. Slander against a territorial official carries penalties. So does theft." "Then prove it." He smiled. "Oh, that's right. You can't prove anything. Not your cattle ownership, not your family claims, not even that the child you're harboring is who you say she is." My hand moved toward the rifle I'd left on my saddle. Abel's voice stopped me. "Caleb." He stood in the doorway, breathing hard like he'd been running. "Need you to come with me now." I wanted to stay, to finish this. But something in Abel's face made me follow. We walked to the saloon. Inside, slumped at a corner table with a half-empty whiskey bottle, was the town clerk, Hayes, Merrick's cousin. "He's been here since dawn," Abel said quietly. "Drunk as I've ever seen him, and drunk men talk." Hayes looked up when we approached. His eyes were red-rimmed, his collar loose. He reeked of sweat and whiskey. "Thornwood," he slurred. "Come to gloat? Come to ask questions." I pulled up a chair. "About my homestead filing. About the date in your ledger." "What about it?" "Abel here says the date's been altered, changed to make it look like I filed later than I did." Hayes laughed, bitter and sharp. "Altered. That's a polite word for it." "So it's true." He took another pull from the bottle. "Merrick paid me $200. $200! More than I make in 6 months. Said it was just adjusting records to match reality, that your filing was incomplete anyway." "But it wasn't incomplete." "No." Hayes' voice cracked. "No, it was proper. Filed January 1871. Witnessed, sealed. I logged it myself. But Merrick said the railroad had prior claim, said I was just correcting an error." He looked at me with bleary, desperate eyes. "I got debts, Thornwood. My wife's sick. Needs medicine I can't afford. What was I supposed to do?" "Tell the truth. Truth don't pay for laudanum." He pushed the bottle across the table. "But here's truth for you. I still got the ledger. Original entries. Before I made the changes. Ink's faded underneath, but you hold it to the light just right. You can see what was there before." Abel leaned forward. "Where is it?" "Land office. Locked drawer in my desk." Hayes fumbled with his keyring, pulled one free, slid it across the table. "Take it. Take the whole damn thing. Maybe it'll buy me one night's sleep without seeing your wife's face." "My wife?" "Margaret." Tears ran down Hayes' face. "She was kind to me. Always. When my boy died, she brought food, sat with my wife, and this is how I repaid her, helped steal the land she loved." He buried his face in his hands. "I'm sorry. God help me. I'm sorry." We left him there, weeping into his whiskey. The land office was closed for midday meal. Abel kept watch while I used Hayes's key. The drawer opened smooth, silent. Inside was the ledger, thick, leather-bound, pages yellow with age and use. I found my entry. January 3rd, 1871. Caleb Thornwood, 640 acres, Section 14. Witnessed by Marcus Shaw, Territorial Surveyor. But the date had been changed. The 1 had been altered to look like a 3. January 1873. Clumsy work. And underneath, where the original ink had soaked through, you could still see the real date if you held it to the window light. That's evidence, Abel said. Proof of forgery. It's also stolen property. Hayes gave us the key, but that doesn't make it legal. Legal. Abel's laugh was harsh. Since when has Merrick cared about legal? We took the ledger, hid it at Abel's forge, wrapped in oilcloth and buried in the coal bin where no one would think to look. That evening, Doc Emma returned from the territorial capital. She rode in tired and dusty, her horse lathered from hard travel, but her face held something I hadn't seen in weeks. Hope. Found them, she said without preamble. Birth records, marriage certificate, death certificate, all of it. She spread the papers on my kitchen table. Lily watched from the doorway, silent and wide-eyed. Clara Thornwood, born 1851, Omaha, married William Graves, 1869. One daughter, Lily Marie Graves, born 1870. Emma pointed to another document. And here, baptism record. Clara and Margaret Thornwood, daughters of Elizabeth Thornwood, baptized together at St. Joseph's Mission, 1852. That proves they were sisters. More than that, look at the witness signatures. I looked. Father Miguel Santos, 1852. Miguel witnessed their baptism, Emma said. He's been here 30 years. He can testify. What about Clara's death certificate? Emma's expression darkened. She pulled another document forward. Clara Graves died March 15, 1874. Cause of death, fire at railroad camp. But here's what's interesting. Look at who signed it. The signature at the bottom was barely legible, rushed and careless. But I could make out the name. S. Merrick, assistant foreman. He was there, I said. He signed the death certificate, which means he knew Clara, knew she died, and if Lily was there, if she saw what happened, she's a witness. We all looked at Lily. She stood very still, her face pale in the lamplight. Her hand moved to the locket at her neck. We need to know if she can identify him, Emma said quietly. His voice, his face. If she can testify. She can't speak, I said. But she can point. She can nod. And with these documents, with Father Miguel's testimony, with Abel's ledger, Emma's voice grew stronger. Caleb, we have a case. A real case. We can fight this. That night, after Emma had gone back to town and Lily was asleep, I sat on the porch with the papers spread before me. Everything we'd need to prove family continuity, everything we'd need to expose Merrick's fraud, but looking at Clara's death certificate, at Merrick's signature, all I could think was, if he'd killed once to hide his crimes, would he kill again? Abel arrived at dawn with the medallion. It was finished, polished, smooth, the MT star on one side catching the early light, the cross on the other dark, with blessed oil. Solstice was yesterday, he said. Longest day. I finished it at sunset, when the light turns gold. Father Miguel blessed it this morning. He held it out to me. The metal was warm, like it held its own heat. What do I do with it? Give it to Lily. Let her hold it. The sound of the forge. The weight of protection. Sometimes that's enough to break through fear. Abel paused. And Caleb, when she touches it, you might want to have Merrick nearby. See how she reacts. That's dangerous. So is waiting for him to make his next move. He was right. 64 days until the deadline. And Merrick was running out of patience. Time to find out what Lily remembered. The barn dance was Victoria Walsh's idea. She ran the mercantile, a practical woman with no love for railroad men or their schemes. She'd cornered me after church. Town needs something to celebrate, she'd said. Been too much fighting, too much fear. We're having a dance Saturday night. You bring that girl. Let folks see she's part of this community. I'd wanted to refuse, but Abel had caught my eye, nodded slightly. A barn dance meant crowds, meant Merrick would likely attend. He never missed a chance to press flesh and appear respectable. Meant Lily would be near him, with the medallion in her pocket. Saturday evening, late June, the sun hung low and gold over the prairie. The Walsh barn had been swept clean, lanterns hung from the rafters. Someone had brought a fiddle, another a guitar. The smell of hay and dust mixed with the sweetness of punch and cookies laid out on plank tables. Lily wore her best dress, another of Margaret's, altered to fit. The medallion hung beneath her collar on a leather cord, hidden from view but close to her heart. She'd held it that morning, touched the warm metal, and for a moment I thought I saw recognition flash in her eyes, but she still hadn't spoken. Families arrived in wagons. Children ran shrieking between the adults. The music started, a simple reel, feet stomping on wooden boards. The sound filled the barn, drowned out conversation. I stood near the door, watching. Abel appeared at my elbow. "He's here," Abel said quietly. Merrick had just arrived, dressed in his town clothes, that gold watch chain gleaming. He moved through the crowd like a politician, shaking hands, smiling, playing the benevolent land agent, friend to all homesteaders. "We should get Lily close to him," Abel said. "See if she reacts. And if she does, if she has a fit like she did at the forge, then we have confirmation." Abel's voice was grim. "And we know what we're dealing with." I found Lily near the punch table, watching the dancers with wide eyes. I knelt beside her. "Remember what we talked about? About the man who might have been there the night your mama died?" She nodded slowly. "He's here, in the barn. I need to know if you recognize him. Can you do that?" Her hand went to the medallion beneath her dress. She held it through the fabric, and I saw her jaw set with determination that reminded me of Margaret. She nodded again. We moved through the crowd, slow, casual. I kept one hand on Lily's shoulder, feeling her tension build with each step. The fiddle music swirled around us, bright and jarring. Merrick was talking with Mrs. Pemberton and two other merchants, laughing at some joke. His back was to us. We got within 10 feet, then 5. Lily stopped walking. Her entire body had gone rigid. "What is it?" I whispered. She was staring at Merrick's back. Her hand clutched the medallion so tight her knuckles were white. Her breathing came fast and shallow. Then Merrick turned, saw us. His smile never faltered. "Thornwood, good to see you participating in community events." He stepped closer. "And this must be the young lady I've heard so much about." He crouched down to Lily's level, his face friendly, open. "Hello there. What's your name?" Lily's mouth opened. No sound came out, but her eyes were filled with terror so pure it made my stomach clench. "Shy, is she?" Merrick straightened. "Well, that's all right. Children need time to warm up to strangers." He walked away, rejoining his conversation. Lily collapsed against me, shaking. Her hands pressed over her ears even though the music had stopped, as if she was hearing something else entirely. I carried her outside, into the cool evening air. Abel followed. "She knows him," I said. "More than knows him. She's terrified." Abel looked back toward the barn. "That's not just fear of a stranger. That's memory." Lily was making small sounds in her throat. Not words, not quite crying, but something between. Her hand still gripped the medallion. I could feel it through her dress, warm as a coal. "Lily," I said gently. "Was that the man? The one from the fire?" She nodded, tears streaming. "The one who said, 'Burn it all'?" Another nod. Abel and I looked at each other. We had our answer, but what could we do with it? A mute child's recognition wasn't testimony, wasn't evidence any court would accept. From inside the barn I heard Merrick's voice raised in laughter. Heard others join in. He was winning. Winning the town, winning the confidence, winning the battle for my land. And there wasn't a damn thing I could do about it. 3 days later, they came at dawn, 3 riders, hard men with rifles and a piece of paper that said they were railroad security. They had orders to clear squatters and vagrant livestock from company property. I met them at the fence line, rifle in hand. "This is private land," I said. "You're trespassing." The lead man, thick-necked, scarred, spat tobacco juice. "Got a court order says different. Land's in dispute pending review. Railroad's got right to secure it." "Show me the order." He did. It was official enough. Territorial seal, judge's signature. Authorized railroad security to maintain order on contested properties pending resolution. "When was this signed?" "Yesterday. Now you going to move, or are we going to move you?" Behind me, in the house, I knew Lily was watching, knew she was scared. I lowered my rifle. "I'll be filing a complaint with the sheriff." "You do that." The man smiled. "Meantime, we'll be keeping an eye on things, making sure nothing else goes missing." They set up camp on the ridge overlooking my house. Close enough to watch every move I made, close enough that I couldn't leave without them knowing. We were under siege. That evening, Abel rode out with Doc Emma and Father Miguel. They came after dark, horses walking quiet. I let them in through the back door. Town split, Abel said without preamble. Half think you're being cheated. Half think you're a fraud. Merrick's been talking, spreading doubt about Lily's identity, about the papers Emma found. They're real papers, Emma protested. Official records. He's saying they could be forged, that you had time in the Capitol to manufacture evidence. Abel shook his head. Man's good at his work. He's poisoning the well. Then we fight back, I said. We call a meeting, present everything we have, the ledger, the birth records, Father Miguel's testimony. Already tried, Miguel said quietly. Sheriff says he cannot authorize an official hearing without the judge present, and the judge isn't due until August. August 1st, I said. The same day my deadline expires. Convenient, Abel muttered. Emma set a hand on my arm. There's another way. Frontier justice, community tribunal. It's not official, but it carries weight. If enough people witness the evidence, if they vote in your favor, Merrick won't accept it. He won't have a choice, not if the whole town turns against him. She looked at each of us. We call a gathering, July 4th, Independence Day. Everyone will be in town anyway. We present the case publicly, let the people decide. And if they decide against me, then you've lost nothing you weren't going to lose anyway? She was right. We were out of options and nearly out of time. July 4th, I said, we make our stand. After they left, I found Lily sitting on her bed, the medallion in her hands. She was humming, soft, almost inaudible. But I recognized the melody, Margaret's lullaby, the one she used to sing while kneading bread, while mending clothes, while rocking in the chair by the evening fire. Where'd you learn that song? I asked. Lily looked up at me, touched the medallion, then pointed at her chest. Your mama taught you? She nodded. And my wife, Margaret, she sang it too? Another nod. Then Lily stood, came to me, and put the medallion in my hand. It was warm from her holding it, and as my fingers closed around it, I could swear I heard something, faint as memory, clear as truth, the sound of a hammer on anvil, and beneath it, a woman's voice, screaming. July 4th dawned clear and hot. The whole territory seemed to hold its breath, waiting for the coolness that wouldn't come. By mid-morning, the temperature had climbed past 90. Dust hung in the air like gauze. The town square was packed. 60, maybe 70 people gathered under the cottonwoods, seeking what little shade the leaves provided. Families from outlying ranches, merchants from Main Street, even drifters and ranch hands drawn by the promise of spectacle. Someone had dragged a table from the courthouse, set it in the center of the square. Abel and Doc Emma arranged documents on its surface, birth certificates, marriage records, the ledger from the land office with its telltale erasures. Father Miguel stood beside them in his black cassock, sweating in the heat but standing straight. Sheriff Bridger leaned against a post, arms crossed, not participating but present, watching. I stood with Lily near the back, waiting. She wore the medallion openly now, outside her dress. The metal caught the sunlight, flashed like a signal. Merrick arrived with his 2 hired men. He moved through the crowd, shaking hands, smiling. When he saw the table, the documents, his smile tightened, but he didn't leave. Abel stepped forward. The crowd quieted. Most of you know why we're here, he said, his voice carried across the square. Caleb Thornwood's land is under review. The territorial agent claims he's got no family continuity, no right to his homestead. We're here to show that's false. This is highly irregular, Merrick called out. Land disputes are settled in court, not town squares. Courts work when the law's honest, Abel shot back. When it ain't, communities decide for themselves. That's how it's always been on the frontier. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the crowd. Abel picked up the first document. Birth certificate. Lily Marie Graves, born 1870, Omaha. Mother listed as Clara Thornwood Graves. That's the maiden name. Thornwood. He picked up another. Marriage certificate. Clara Thornwood married William Graves, 1869. Another. Baptism record, 1852. Clara Thornwood and Margaret Thornwood, baptized together at St. Joseph's Mission. Witness, Father Miguel Santos. He looked at the priest. Father, you want to speak to this? Miguel stepped forward. I was a young priest then, newly assigned to the mission. I remember the family. 2 sisters close in age. Their mother brought them for baptism together. Clara was the younger by a year. And Margaret Thornwood later became Margaret Thornwood, wife of Caleb? Abel asked. She did. I performed the marriage ceremony myself, 1863. The crowd shifted, absorbed this information. Mrs. Pemberton looked troubled. Others nodded slowly. Doc Emma spoke next. I traveled to the territorial capital specifically to verify these records. They're authentic, filed in the official archives, not forged, not fabricated. Any documents can be forged, Merrick said. He pushed through the crowd to the table. I've seen clever frauds before, and conveniently, the woman these documents supposedly describe is dead. Can't confirm or deny anything. But her daughter's alive, Abel said. He gestured to me. I came forward, Lily's hand in mine. The crowd parted, watching us approach. Lily Graves, Abel said. Daughter of Clara, niece to Margaret, blood relation to Caleb Thornwood, which means family continuity is established. If she is who you claim, Merrick said. But how do we know? The child can't speak, can't verify her own identity. She can communicate, Doc Emma said. She writes, she draws. Child's drawings, and a few letters? Merrick's voice was smooth, reasonable. That's not testimony. That's not proof. The crowd murmured again, doubt creeping in. Abel reached for the ledger. Then let's talk about proof. This is the official land office ledger. Shows Caleb's filing date as January 1873. But look here. He held it to the sunlight. You can see where the date's been altered. Original filing was 1871, 2 years earlier than the railroad's supposed claim. The crowd pressed closer, craning to see. Who altered it? Someone called. Town Clerk Hayes, Abel said. He's already confessed. Merrick paid him $200 to change the date. The crowd turned to look at Merrick. His face had gone still, calculating. That's a serious accusation, he said carefully. Hayes is a drunk. Everyone knows it. If he's claiming I bribed him, where's his proof? Right here, Abel said, tapping the ledger. Proof is in the forgery. Forgery you could have done yourself, Merrick countered. For all we know, you're the one who altered it to frame me. The doubt spread. I could see it in faces around us. Nobody wanted to believe their land agent was corrupt. Easier to think Abel was lying. We were losing them. Then Lily pulled on my hand. I looked down. She was staring at the table, at something half buried under the documents. The railroad spike Abel had found at the camp ruins. Its scorched head with the notched teeth. She reached for it. Lily, no, I started, but she'd already taken it, held it in both small hands. The metal was hot from the sun, and as her fingers closed around it, her whole body went rigid. The crowd fell silent, sensing something was happening. Lily's mouth opened, her throat worked, and then, for the first time in 4 months, she spoke. That sound. Her voice was small, rusty from disuse, but clear. Everyone heard it. The hammer on iron. That's what I heard before Mama screamed. She looked up at Merrick, pointed at him with one shaking hand. And that voice, saying burn it all, leave no records. That man. The silence that followed was absolute. Merrick's face drained of color, then flushed red. She's lying. The child's been coached. I heard him, Lily said, stronger now. Words tumbling out like a dam breaking. I was hiding in the corner. Mama told me to hide when the angry men came. They were shouting about money, about ledgers. And that man, she pointed at Merrick again, he said they had to burn the quarters, destroy the evidence. He said no witnesses. This is absurd. But Mama got me out. She pushed me through the window, wrapped in her quilt. She said, run to the mission. Tell Father Miguel, but the smoke. Lily's voice broke. I couldn't breathe. I fell. And when I woke up, everything was gone. Mama was gone. Tears streamed down her face, but she kept talking. They said it was an accident, said Mama died in a cooking fire, but it wasn't. It was him. He killed her. The crowd turned as one to stare at Merrick. He took a step backward. His hand moved toward his coat. Sheriff Bridger moved faster. He grabbed Merrick's wrist, twisted it behind his back. The pistol that had been in Merrick's pocket clattered to the ground. Silas Merrick, Bridger said, his voice carrying across the square. You're under arrest for fraud, forgery, and suspicion of murder. You have no proof. I've got a child's testimony, got a forged ledger, got a death certificate you signed yourself, listing a fire as accidental when witnesses say otherwise. Bridger pulled Merrick's arms behind him, snapped iron cuffs around his wrists. And I've got something else. Been investigating you for 6 months now. Got testimony from railroad workers who were at that camp. Got financial records showing you embezzled payroll funds. Got enough evidence to hang you twice. Merrick struggled. The territorial governor is currently under investigation himself, Bridger said. You really think your patron's going to protect you now? He hauled Merrick toward the jail. The crowd parted, silent. Abel stepped forward, addressing everyone. The question before us is simple. Does Lily Graves have standing as Caleb Thornwood's family? Does Caleb keep his land? Vote, someone called. All in favor of recognizing Lily as family, say aye. The response was immediate, thunderous. Aye. Opposed? Silence. Even Mrs. Pemberton said nothing. Then it's decided, Abel said. Lily Graves Thornwood is recognized as blood family. Caleb's homestead stands. The crowd broke into cheers. People pressed forward, shaking my hand, touching Lily's shoulder, offering congratulations. But Lily wasn't looking at them. She was looking at me, her eyes bright with tears, and something else, something like hope. Papa, she whispered, testing the word. I knelt in the dust, wrapped my arms around her. Yes, if you want. I want. And for the first time in 6 years, I wept in public and didn't care who saw. 3 weeks later, Judge Harmon arrived from the territorial capital. He reviewed the evidence in his temporary chambers above the mercantile. Birth records, baptism certificates, the forged ledger, witness statements from the July 4th gathering. He also interviewed Lily. She sat in a chair too large for her, answered his questions in a voice that grew stronger with each word. Yes, she remembered the fire. Yes, she identified Merrick. Yes, she wanted to stay with me. The judge signed the papers on a Tuesday morning. Full legal adoption. Lily Marie Graves became Lily Marie Thornwood, with all rights and privileges thereof. Doc Emma cried when I told her. Father Miguel blessed us both. Abel forged a new brand, smaller, child-sized, with Lily's initials beneath the MT star. Merrick went to trial in August. The territorial prosecutor brought 16 charges, including murder, fraud, embezzlement, and conspiracy. The jury deliberated for less than an hour, guilty on all counts. He was hanged in September. I didn't attend. Neither did Lily. Some endings don't need witnessing. The drought broke in late July. Rain came steady for 3 days, filling the water hole, greening the prairie. By August, wildflowers covered the hills, yellow and purple and blue, stretching to the horizon. Lily planted lavender around Margaret's grave. It took root, thrived. The scent carried on the evening breeze, sweet and clean. First week of September, calving season, for the late breeders. A heifer I'd been watching went into labor at dawn. I found Lily already at the barn, waiting. You sure about this? I asked. It's hard work, she nodded. I want to help, want to learn the trade. We worked together as the sun climbed. The birth went smoothly. A strong bull calf on his feet within minutes, his mother cleaned him with her rough tongue while he wobbled on new legs. Now comes the important part, I said. Abel had the branding fire ready in the corral. The iron was heating, the MT star glowing orange. He'd made good on his promise. Forged a second, smaller iron that Lily could manage. I showed her how to hold it, how to press firm and steady. Her hands were small but determined. You ready? She took a breath, nodded. Together we approached the calf. He was secured to the post, his mother watching nearby. Lily positioned the iron above his flank. Now, I said, steady. She lowered it. The calf bawled once. The smell of burned hide filled the air, acrid, sharp, the smell of marking what's yours. Lily held it for 3 seconds, then lifted clean. The brand was perfect. MT star, clear as day. She looked up at me, her face flushed with pride and effort. I did it. You did. That's our family mark now, yours and mine both. She touched the medallion at her neck. She wore it always now, never took it off. Mama would be proud. She would, and so would Margaret. We released the calf, watched him stumble back to his mother. The brand would heal in a few days, leave a permanent mark, proof of belonging, proof of family. That evening, we sat on the porch and watched the sun set. The sky turned gold, then orange, then purple. Stars began appearing, one by one. Papa, Lily said. She still tested the word sometimes, like she couldn't quite believe it was real. Yes? At the July 4th gathering, when I spoke, I heard Mama's voice. She was telling me it was safe, that I could talk now. Do you think she's still here, watching? I thought about Margaret, about Clara, about all the ways love persists beyond death, in melodies and stitching patterns, in the courage of small girls who speak truth when it matters most. Yes, I said. I think they're both watching, both proud of you. Of us, she corrected. Of us. We sat in comfortable silence as the night deepened. Somewhere in the distance, a coyote called. The cattle settled in the pasture. The lavender released its scent into the cooling air. Lily leaned against my shoulder. Tell me about Margaret again, about how she sang while she made bread. So I did. Told her about her aunt who'd loved wildflowers and quilting and standing on the porch in the rain. Told her about the woman who'd written in her diary about wanting to bring Clara and her baby to the ranch, who'd died before she could make it happen. But we're here now, Lily said when I finished, the way she wanted. Yes, we're here. And as the stars wheeled overhead, as the prairie breathed its night sounds around us, I thought about the blizzard that had brought us together, about the note that had called her unwanted, about how wrong that word had been. She was the most wanted thing I'd ever found. 10 years gone now since that March blizzard. I'm sitting on this same porch, watching Lily teach the neighbor's boy how to card wool. She's 16, near grown, with her mama's copper hair and her aunt's steady hands. The medallion still hangs at her neck, polished smooth from years of wearing. Folks ask sometimes how I knew she was meant to be mine. Truth is, I didn't, not at first. Took me weeks to see what God had already decided. But I've learned that's how grace works. Shows up unexpected, wrapped in the shape of things you thought you'd lost forever. That girl asked me questions I didn't know I needed answering. Can a broken man still be a father? Can mercy outweigh the law? Can family be chosen instead of just inherited? Turns out, yes. To all of it. Lily's got my name now, legal and proper. But she carries Claire's courage and Margaret's grace forward. That's what family is, I reckon. Taking the best of who came before and passing it on to who comes next. The land patent hangs above the hearth, reframed and official. Below it sits Abel's medallion on a small shelf alongside Margaret's locket and a scrap of blue-flowered quilt. Reminders that love persists, that it finds ways to continue even when death tries to stop it. The lavender's blooming again. Does every May without fail. Lily planted it, tends it, cuts sprigs to hang in the kitchen. The scent fills the house on summer evenings, and I swear sometimes I can hear Margaret humming her lullaby. Maybe I'm getting old, hearing ghosts, or maybe some songs never really end. They just get passed down, generation to generation, until everybody's forgotten where they started, but nobody wants them to stop. They tried to call her unwanted. Pinned that word to her coat like it was truth. But I reckon she was the most wanted thing I ever found, even if I didn't know I was looking.